Okay, this is Will and Bella doing our 12th Alzheimer's Chronicle podcast. It's early November. It's rainy and cold out. We're sitting in our library, which is a new room. We usually sit in our family room, but the family room has been reconfigured and doesn't have a couch right now. So since we have to sit very close together in order to both speak into the speaker, we're in the library. Bella has expressed a desire to ask me questions after the last time. Maybe I questioned her too hard or something, or I'm not sure exactly what the issue was, but she said, next time I'm going to ask you questions. So starting off, she is going to ask me some questions, and she has 5 questions that she's written down, and we will see how it goes from there. So here we go.
Okay. First question. What do you feel when I'm really having an Alzheimer moment?
You mean like when you repeat things, you forget something right away, or that sort of thing? Is that what you mean by Alzheimer moment? Or do you mean like if you feel sad and bummed out by the situation?
It's when I can't find my car keys, I can't find my phone, I can't find my glasses. Those types of things happen all the time. They used to never happen, but...
That's not true.
Well, it's gotten a whole lot worse.
Yes. It's a mixture of things. Of course, there's some annoyance, that's, I think, natural when you're in that situation. But, I tell myself, or that annoyance is countered by my understanding that this is beyond your control and this is something that's happening to you, not that you're, causing to happen. And there's nothing you can really do about it. I feel sorry for you. I feel bad for you that, you have to go through that, constantly having those things happen to you and missing stuff and searching for it and then feeling bad. That I think might be the strongest feeling. It depends on, sometimes that feeling is very strong because sometimes I can tell it really bums you out. And you feel, very upset by it, or you just feel like, I don't know, at the end of your rope. But sometimes, you seem to be handling it okay. And then I also feel sad. It's every time those things happen, it's a reminder that you have this disease. On the other hand, it's so common now that it's part of our normal life, and I've, to some extent, grown to accept it and just deal with it. Just, that's part of our life now, so it's like anything else. It's like people who have a disabled kid or something like that, they're not constantly for the kid's entire life thinking about that disability because they get used to it.
So, I have to look at the question again because you talk so long. I also took a nap.
Well, did that seem a little harsh, what I just said about the disabled kid? After I said that about...
I think I'm... Not,
that sounds a little harsh.
Well, for one thing, I'm not a child. I'm a full-grown woman. And I do want to know how you feel when I'm having a crazy moment. Not that I want you to judge me, but... Your feelings matter to me. They matter a lot to me, just like Beans and Pepper's feelings matter a lot to me.
Oh, thanks, yeah.
Anyway, I just feel like sometimes you don't get to say what you want to say to me because you don't want to say the wrong thing, or you feel sorry for me and you don't want to, make a wave, which is not the way we used to live, and I don't really like that idea of continuing with a new living. I like the fact, we used to argue, but now you won't even argue with me.
Right.
And I don't
you
like
miss
that. Well, no, I don't miss it, but I feel like it's not real. It's like you're trying to compensate for some of my loss but you can't. I mean, it's like, you can't put the air back into a deflated balloon. Well, I guess you can, but just re-blow it up.
Oh, yeah. The toothpaste in a tube.
That's it. Toothpaste in a tube. I mean, you can't change what it is. So, you can't be sad because it's not uncommon for people to die. In fact, everybody dies.
Well, you can be sad, though. I mean, you can be.
But you can't.
And people usually are. I mean, that's the way it is, Just because that someone's going to die doesn't mean you don't feel sad when they do or when they get a terminal illness.
Yeah, but you have to wait until they actually die to feel sad.
No, you don't.
Well, that makes me pathetic then.
Well, all that, I think, all that you just said is true. And, as usual, you have a lot of insight into the situation. I think, that's the way it is. There is that aspect of, me, feeling, not like I have to control myself, because that's not the feeling. It's just feeling differently. I don't feel anywhere near as annoyed and anywhere near as mad or frustrated as I would have, 5 years ago before you got Alzheimer's and before I knew that, the reason you asked me something for the 5th time in a row in 5 minutes or
you could
I'm
just not be listening
house.
And I had to ask you 5 times.
Right, 5 years ago.
No,
it could have been
not
that.
necessarily 5 years ago.
Okay, 4.5 years ago. But, it's different. So I feel differently. The circumstances are different. So I feel differently. I'm not like squelching what I feel. I do feel differently.
It's interesting because back before the Alzheimer's kicked in, I kind of bossed you around a lot.
Right.
And I don't do that so much anymore. I would have thought you would have brought that up because, hallelujah, you're not being bossed around by me anymore.
I have brought that up. I've talked to you about that.
Well, not on a podcast.
Okay. This is the formerly henpecked Will talking about his newfound freedom and independence.
It's true. Do you want to go into the next question? I have 5 of them, and that was just the one.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the next question for you. And remember, if you're not honest, I'll know, and you will suffer for it. Do you feel alone in this situation? If yes, how?
I do. I think that's pretty common. I mean, that's part of the Alzheimer's literature. Other people in support groups talk about that. Absolutely there's a loneliness to the circumstances because you and I have always shared a lot. We, met on an equal ground in our sharing of things, and now that has changed, and it's just not the same. I can't be spontaneous all the time. I can't be sort of constantly reminding you of your illness and how that's affecting you that in the way that I observe, because that's just not something I want to do, and it's just not something that would be kind.
Well, I don't think you should be, bringing it to my attention all the time.
Right.
And I try not to bring it to your attention by being a knucklehead. And I feel, even though I know it's probably not the reality, it's just my reality, I don't think I'm in that bad a shape. I mean, I don't feel like I'm constantly repeating myself or I'm constantly losing things. I mean, I always find what I'm missing. And that was the case prior to this disease, unless I caught the disease or whatever it is, like when I was 15.
It's a matter of degree, but I forget what my point was.
You can say
things are different.
Yeah, I know.
It's true that you're not that bad off, And we couldn't even be having a conversation like this if you were. But it's also true that things have changed. So
Yeah.
I can't, and that is a constant reality. I mean, that reality, whether you're having, a moment that I could say, oh, that's due to the disease or not, it's always there because it's, a brain disease. So it's kind of like it affects who you are to some extent.
Yeah, but, I'm 60. I'm not young. I expect I have 23 more years because my mother, who did not have Alzheimer's, died at 83, and my grandmother, who did not have Alzheimer's, died at 83. I just assume I'm going to die at 83. And so I don't think about the fact that I've given myself 23 extra years.
Okay. So what's the point?
You weren't paying attention.
No, you said you're going to live 23 extra years, but I'm not really sure.
The reason
what
is
the point
because in the women in my family only die at 83.
Okay.
So if I'm one of the women in our family, and I am, I mean, my mother died at 83, my grandmother died at 83, my aunt died at 83. Everybody dies at 83 in the female side of the family. So, I expect I'll live until 83. The problem is I probably might not be living a kosher life, such as, I don't know. I don't want to go into the bathroom stuff, but, 83 would be a good time to die if I were, in an institution.
Okay. Should we go to question 3?
Yes, please. Okay. What is the most... Wait, did I do this one already?
No.
What is the most difficult for you with my disease?
The most difficult part of it for me?
Yes.
My
bossiness?
You're not bossy. You're less bossy.
Oh, jeez. That's a check
So,
on the right side.
Yeah. That's like a fringe benefit of the disease.
I don't argue with you nearly as much as I used to.
Right. No, you listen to me a lot more.
Ooh.
And you adopt. I mean, I think I've mentioned this before, but it's sort of this little thing that happens where, we'll be talking about something and I'll suggest like the right way to do it, or I'll make an observation, and then later you will make that same observation or make that suggestion as if you had thought of it. So it's sort of like I can put ideas in your head.
Oh.
So that's like a really excellent part of the disease.
Like master manipulator.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you're like the evil king, and I'm the destitute, chambermaid.
I guess.
Well, not quite.
That sounds like something else. But anyway.
You do edit this, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What's the hardest part? I don't.
No. If you could change one thing.
No. That's the one you just asked me was what's the hardest part. But all right, why don't we move on to question 4?
No.
What's the most difficult for me? I don't really know. I mean, just sort of the change in you know what it is? It's thinking about how bad things might get. It's not really the present day, which isn't that bad. It isn't bad at all. But it's thinking about
isn't that bad?
How bad things might get and how I'm going to deal with it. It's the uncertainty and the dread. So that's the hardest.
Okay.
It
is.
Question 4.
I try not to feel about the dread because, I live it every day. So I understand what you're feeling. And sometimes I get that ew running through my body like, but I really squelch it. I don't use drugs or alcohol, but I've considered it.
Okay.
This one.
No,
this one. Okay.
No, you just read that one. This one.
If you could change one thing without taking into consideration for the disease, what would you change?
I I'm not quite sure what that means.
I don't either. Wait a second. If you could change one thing without taking into consideration for the disease, what would you change? Meaning, if I didn't have the disease, would you want to change something?
That's nothing to do with Alzheimer's, that question.
Okay. It's a plant.
That also sounds like one of those questions that you shouldn't answer as a husband. Nothing, honey. I change absolutely nothing. You know why? Because you're perfect.
Almost good. Almost the perfect answer. You didn't say how beautiful I was and how great I was.
Well, that's part of being perfect.
Okay. So this is supposed to be, what would you change if one thing without taking into consideration the disease? I guess I meant to say taken into consideration, not without.
Oh, like one part of the disease? Like one symptom or something?
If you could change one thing, what would you change? That's it. I don't know where all the other stuff came from.
All right. Why don't we try question 5? Okay.
How do you cope with our daily lives post-normal?
I have different ways of coping. I mean, kind of my same ways that I had before. It helps me to work out. It helps me to read, to have my hobbies like that, and to, keep my sanity, keep myself on an even keel by having little routines, I guess that's about it, really. I mean, the more our lives can, maintain some continuity and some normalcy, based on what we had already established that I really liked, the better I feel about things. The more they're disrupted by this and, changed in a way that's difficult, then, the harder that is to cope with, which I guess is where the dread comes from. When I say I dread the future, I dread having our lives, really completely upended and changed, a lot.
But there's two roads. There's the road where Bella is completely nuts and, needs all sorts of help with like blowing her nose and stuff.
Right. And that's what I dread.
And then there's the other side where it may never happen to get to that point, because not everybody with Alzheimer's gets to that point. They sort of plateau for years sometimes. And, it might be crazy stuff in the house and like I'm cooking something in the sink. I mean, who knows what the craziness will be, but there will be crazy stuff. So, I guess my question is, the last question I have for you is, do you feel alone in this situation? If yes, how?
I think you already asked that, but I
did. Did I? Oh, darn.
That's okay. But see? I do feel alone. To some extent. I feel alone because, I can't necessarily share my experience with you because you won't necessarily understand my experience, just like I don't understand your experience. I don't know what it's like to have Alzheimer's disease. And even if you describe it to me, I'm not going to understand it. I'm not going to appreciate it.
Oh, that's so funny, because I think the opposite. If the situation were different, I think I would understand. But that I just have that type of, emotional thing where I like I am with the animals, even though they can't talk to me, and, they're animals and they don't live like we do. I have a very strong emotional connection to them, and our relationship is a real relationship. Even though one's a bunny and one's a dog, they're very communicable. They communicate with me very easily, and there's a strong sense of, feeling for each other. I mean, I don't feel like that part is ever going to go away with you.
I hope not. I guess, I know that sometimes you're trying not to, burden me. I mean, I understand that you don't want, that part of the reason why, you manage to mostly keep up, feeling chipper is that, you don't want to bum me out, which it would bum me out. If you were sitting around depressed and morose all the time, then I would definitely be depressed and morose. And I think that, you make an effort for my sake. And, so, I don't want to, I guess I don't want to tell you, all the time if I'm, if I have this sort of dark cloud hanging over me. I don't want you to feel like this disease is a dark cloud over me, because it is, and it's not your fault, but I feel like you would internalize that and think that it was your fault and that you were a burden on me. I mean, you say that. You say, that you're a burden, that you're a crazy woman, and I'm married to a crazy woman, and I think you feel that, so that makes me feel kind of alone or kind of isolated in my feelings. You know what I mean? Because it's like I can't really, I don't really want to. Talk about them too much. I mean, which is ironic because then we're doing it here and I do it in my column, and then I worry about that.
What do you worry about?
That you will, that you'll sort of take that to heart. That you'll hear what I'm saying now, or you'll read something in my column and you'll feel like, oh, I've ruined his life.
Yeah, but I'm just going to forget about it in 5 seconds afterwards. No. Well, I feel like to some extent I have interrupted your life. It's like couple interrupted instead of girl interrupted.
Right, because we're only in midlife, right? So we got like another 50 years.
Yeah, right. I don't think my body can make it another 50 years, but it can make another 23 years.
Sounds good. 23 years sounds good.
Yeah, and I don't expect, not everybody has the same experience with Alzheimer's. Not everybody, goes deep into one area and never comes back out. And not everyone, embraces it to the extent that I do. I mean, I'm not like, I can't believe this has happened to me. Think of all the people with cancer. Think of all the people who have children with cancer. Now that, to me, is something to sit in the corner and cry about.
It is, and it's worse. I agree,
way worse.
It is worse, but there is a difference in that when people have something like that happen, they can go through it together. People who are a couple,
right?
And if I had cancer, we could go sort of kind of go through that together, or definitely if one of our children had a problem, we would go through that together. While in this instance, it's a little different. You have your experience, I have my experience. There's a separation there.
I don't feel that, honey. I know that you do, and I understand that, but I don't feel that. I don't feel like we have dual lives. I have, my perception is things have changed, but they haven't, there isn't a separation. I know it's different for you than it is for me. My experience is going to be a different experience that I'm having with this disease than with you having me have this disease. I understand there's going to be very, different feelings about it, but I really don't feel, the devastation I think that you're probably feeling.
Yeah. I think, I think that's right. There's a devastation, but then there's an appreciation of, what is left and what, we have anyway. It's like, wow, that totally sucks. And then it's like, oh, but maybe it's not all bad. It's not a complete wreckage. If there's a lot left.
Yeah, I was gonna say the wreckage hasn't really come.
Right.
The wreckage is when I don't even know who you are and I try and kill you. That that. Not hopefully.
Kill me? Where do you get that?
I don't know. I was trying to think of the worst thing I could do, besides go into the bathroom issue. The wreckage of killing you is easier to say to people who are listening than the wreckage of me having to have someone help me in the bathroom. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's my worst dread. I mean, that's like the most dreaded thing that I feel about this disease is.
Well, if you get to that point, you won't know that that's.
I don't want other people to know either. Someone's going to have to do it if it's not me.
But what I'm saying is, if you get to that point, by that point, you won't appreciate that. You won't feel.
I don't want to get to that point. I want to be able to continue with my personal toiletry stuff without having somebody, do it for me.
Yeah.
I could take a cue from the dog and the bunny. They don't care. They just go out, Pepper goes out in the lawn and does her thing, and Beans goes into his little litter box and does his thing, and they don't care if people are looking. They don't care if people, are aware of it. I think, animals are a whole lot more intelligent than humans are, and they have a lot more, I don't know, they're a lot more mature about stuff than people are.
Yeah. Should we stop there?
Yeah, after I say how much I love my bunny and my dog, how much I adore them, and that right before we had this little conversation, I was stringing lights on the banister of our staircase so that my dog, whose eyes are going bad, will be able to see easier because there's no light above the staircase, just at the bottom of the staircase. So I'm putting a string of white lights so that she'll be able to see easier and not be so frightened. That's it.
Okay. Signing off.
Wait, I just want you to know I really love you.
I love you too.
That was the kiss of death.